Howdy, y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the Flight Sim community. This is Fiber Strike 95, and welcome back to another um 50 States, 50 Streams. Yes, part 28 of 50 this Sunday. And we're here at the Lone Star State. That's right, Texas, guys. So, yeah, Texas is definitely a really big state. It's actually the second biggest state in the country, not in terms of both area and population. Only one larger than Texas is Alaska, of course. And population's only behind California. But Texas, really cool state. Tons of really interesting places and cities to visit all across the Texas state. From Houston to San Antonio to Austin, Dallas-Fort Worth area, even less explored places like Amarillo, Lubbock, and El Paso. So Texas, really cool state, and has a lot of things really going for it. Before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone in the chat and hello to all the lurkers. Good to have you guys on board today. So our flight plan for today is we're going to fly around the Texas Triangle area today. We're going to be flying around Central Texas. We'll start here at Houston at historic Hobby Airport. We're going to fly over to downtown Houston or downtown. Then we'll head west. We'll make our way to our first stop at Stinson Municipal Field in San Antonio. Then from there, we'll fly into downtown San Antonio. We'll check out the famous Alamo around downtown in the Alamo. Then we'll head northwest and we'll head our way over to the state capital of Texas, Austin. Then we'll head up north and we'll reach our way to our second stop here in Temple, Texas at Broughton Miller Central Texas Regional. And then for our third and last leg, we'll fly over Waco. We'll fly near Baylor University. Then we'll head northwest and we'll head our way to the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. We'll start in Dallas. We'll start first in downtown Dallas. Then we'll head west over to Arlington. We'll check out AT&T Stadium, home of the Cowboys. And then finally west to downtown Fort Worth and the famous stockyards. And then our final stop at Fort Worth Meacham International Airport, just north of Fort Worth. So yeah, we'll be flying through some of the most important cities in the state of Texas. Okay. So the plane we're taking here today is, of course, we're taking the Cessna Corvallis here today. This basically looks like Cessna's answer to the Cirrus SR-22 family planes. However, unlike the Cessna Corvallis, unlike the Cirrus, this has not been a very successful plane. For example, in 2017, only 23 examples. It's nowhere near as successful as the Cirrus model of planes. But it's basically their own version, and it can cruise up to 235 knots, range of about 1,100 nautical miles, and a service ceiling of 25,000 feet. But I felt like this would be a good plane to take for today's stream. I thought, we haven't flown this one before. We've flown the Cirrus on stream, but never this thing. Could be a little bit brand new for me. So, there we go, guys. That is how we get the Corvallis started. So, here our slideshow today, we're actually here at Houston Hobby Airport. Now, if you guys aren't aware about historic Hobby Airport here in Houston, this airport is a very old one, opened back in 1927. It's 97 years old. It's going to turn 90 this year. So it's only 2 years away from being 100 years old. It's the oldest airport here in the city. And it was the primary airport until George Bush Intercontinental opened in 1969. However, still then, it still is now a major secondary airport for domestic flights, especially on Southwest Airlines. Of course, it's one of the major operating bases for Southwest Airlines, which has both domestic and, yes, even international flights out of Houston Hobby. And more importantly as well, and it's actually the 5th largest airport in Southwest Airlines network. And the airport itself covers over 1,300 acres and 3 runways. And it was the first 5-star airport in North America by Skytrax in 2022. It also features a 1940s terminal museum featuring a historic terminal from the 1940s era. Pretty cool stuff. Really neat airport with a rich history. But of course, the city we'll be flying over to begin with is the city of Houston, Texas. The most populous city in the state, actually. Located in the southeast part of Texas, it is the 5th most populous metro area in the United States and the 2nd most populous metro, with a whopping population of 7.1 million people. Its city area itself is 2.3 million, which unbelievably is the 4th most populous city in the U.S. after New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, and the 6th most populous city in all of North America. And it's one of the most expensive cities in the country, too. And it was founded back in 1836 at the confluence of the Buffalo Bayou on August 30th, 1836. And it was named after the former General Sam Houston, who was the president of the Republic of Texas and had won Texas independence from Mexico. Though it didn't truly evolve until the 20th century, thanks to Galvin's decline from a hurricane. They moved more inland, and as a result, Houston had a massive economic boom that still is here today. Combine that with space, NASA, more. Houston, as a result, is one of the biggest economies in the country of any U.S. city. I mean, where to begin with Houston? Where do you begin with Houston? It's not only is it rich with financial power and wealth, Houston also rich in culture. Of course, it's home to one of the largest rodeo events in the world, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. It features local art festival, arts and music festivals here in the state. And most importantly, Houston is also known for its sports heritage, too. Houston's home to multiple sports teams. In fact, it's home to every major professional league in the United States except for hockey. The most notable team in the city is the Houston Astros, who have won 2 World Series championships and have played in multiple World Series. They also have the successful Houston Rockets of the NBA, with stars like Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, Yao Ming. The Houston Texans of the NFL. And they also have the MLS's Houston Dynamo. So, yeah, here we are, guys. We're going to be flying down to Houston. Look to your left on your... We can see some of Houston's sport arenas to our left. NRG Stadium and all that. We won't be visiting the stadium. We'll just fly over the downtown area. And we're mainly going to fly over downtown Houston. Yeah, Houston's metro area is absolutely enormous. It's a massive city. And Houston's hosted many sporting events. From Major League Baseball All-Star Game to multiple Super Bowls, NBA Finals, World Series games. It will even host multiple matches at the FIFA World Cup in 2026. So yes, Houston absolutely is absolutely a very important city, the young United States. Yeah, here's the University of Houston down below us. We visited the University of Houston a while back. Here's downtown Houston. So here's some of the landmarks. Here is Toyota Center, home of the Rockets. Here's the iconic ballpark, formerly known as Minute Maid Ballpark, but now it's officially been renamed to Daikin Park. The renamed corporate naming ship. Here it is. There's also the stadium of the Houston Dynamo, too. It changed the weather. Here it is. Here's downtown Houston for you. How cool is that? There's downtown Houston. What's crazy is this metro area is just sprawling. Here we go, guys. Look at the size of Houston, man. Absolutely. And what's funny is there's the metro area just extends way beyond. So we're gonna climb up to 8,000 feet. We're gonna be here for a bit. So we're gonna climb up to 8,000 feet. We'll talk about more about the state of Texas and get to 8,000 feet. Talk plenty about the rest state. Because this is actually the longest leg of the trip. The rest of the legs are actually not so bad. We're gonna climb really high. So guys, I hope you're having a good weekend so far. I know Murph's on today. I know Murph's gonna be yeah. Now, Houston's main airport is George Bush Intercontinental. That is the main airport of Houston. And that's one of the main hubs for United Airlines. And Houston has tons of flights to both domestic and international. Especially this is blown a lot more routes to Latin America. That's what the Houston hub is for Latin America route. So, here we go, guys. We officially are climbed our way up to 8,000 feet up here in Corvallis. Yeah, we're still technically in the Houston metro area too. We're still technically in it. All of this is the Houston metro area. So in terms of other stuff going on, as well for me outside my streams, Everton lost yesterday. Big loss for the Toffees. Not a good game for the Toffees. The Toffees, they bended at the end. They just bended. Uh, of course. So at least the good news is that Louisville City is still unbeaten. Uh, City is still unbeaten. They just beat the Rowdies 2-1 in Tampa, which is a nice win to have against our rival. Still behind Loudoun United, but who knows? We could probably catch back up. But hey, the fact we're still unbeaten, I think it's still nice to have. Yeah. Next match for Lucy isn't until it's not until next Saturday against Richmond for the USL Cup. And then, of course, May 1st will be the rivalry game with Lexington. Should be interesting. Yeah, pretty nice to hear for sure. Also, for the NBA as well, the Pacers managed to absolutely beat down the Bucks last night. On Tuesday, they just beat them down last night. Big, yesterday, big win for the Pacers. Absolutely, just despite how good Giannis has been, the Pacers are just a better team all around. Proved to be the much better team. I mean, Siakam played really well. Halliburton, a double-double for Halliburton. Miles Turner played well. Some good contributions by Mathurin and McConnell and Nimhard all had great contributions to the But yeah, the Pacers could very well be on a good start. They're going to be back Tuesday, so but another big win at home would be huge for the Pacers. They definitely need another home win. And tonight, I'm most cheered for the Magic to beat the Celtics. That'll get rid of one of the big obstacles to Indiana's path to the NBA championship. That's what I'm cheering for too. And then for baseball, at least, I would keep track of it all season. The Rays are 9-12. They're still last in the East. They've not been great on the road. And then the Reds are doing all right. They're third in the Central, but now the Brewers have climbed back up. Oh yeah, and then there's also the MLS too going on. So the MLS has happened as well. FC Cincinnati is doing really well this year. They're 6-1-2 this year. The FC Cincinnati is doing really well. But Inter Miami played pretty well in the East so far. They're still the only unbeaten team left, the MLS. So they're looking quite good. And then in Western Conference, we have Vancouver leading the West, followed by FC Austin, Minnesota United, and Portland. Very nice for the MLS. And then finally, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs happened. Well, their playoffs have finally started for the NHL. It looks like the Jets are off to a flying start with a 5-3 win over the Blues. The Avalanche beat the Stars. So and then today is going to be a game with the Devils and Hurricanes, Senators Maple Leafs, and the Wild and Golden Knights. Stanley Cup stuff going on for hockey. That's what's going on today for our bit of news and stuff. We're cruising at nearly 209. That's what we're going on here today. We're just going to cruise for a bit. This is about take about an hour to get here. So we're just going to chill for a bit, and then we'll talk about Texas and its history. The history lesson about the state of Texas. We're going to go ahead and cover a bit of our slideshow today, and we're going to talk about the U.S. state of Texas. Yeehaw! So Texas, located in the South Central region of the United States, is the most populous state in the South Central region of the United States. It borders the U.S. states of Louisiana to the Arkansas to the northeast, Oklahoma to the north, New Mexico to the west, and an international border with the Mexican states of Chihuahua, Coahuila, Nuevo Leon, and Tamaulipas, south and southwest. And it also features a coastline on the Gulf of Mexico in the southeast. Covering 268,596 square miles, and with over 31 million residents, it's the second largest state by area and population, by areas behind Alaska, and population by California. And it's nicknamed the Lone Star State. Historically, the five major industries that shaped Texas' economy were cattle, bison, cotton, timber, and oil. Before and after the Civil War, the cattle industry, which kept Texas came dominant, was the major economic driver and created the traditional image of the Texas cowboy. In the later 19th century, cotton lumber grew to be a major industry as the cow industry became less lucrative. However, the thing that really transformed Texas was petroleum deposits. And it initiated an economic boom that drew through much of the 20th century. And nowadays, it's now become more diversified with a high-tech industry during the 20th century. It features the second highest number of Fortune 500 companies in the United States, 52 of them. And Texas has leads in many industries, including tourism, agriculture, petrochemicals, energy, computer, electronics, aerospace, and biomedical sciences. It has led the United States export revenue since 2002 and the second highest gross state product after California. And surprisingly, despite Texas, and with Texas being so big, it has diverse landscapes. From former prairies, grasslands, forests, and coastline. Swamps and pine woods to rolling plains, rugged hills, to the desert mountain of the Big Bend, which we will be visiting on the National Park Series. But overall, Texas is a really diverse state. There's more to meet Texas than meets the eye. So the U.S. state of Texas is definitely interesting. When you talk about the pre-contact era of Europe, and talk about more of its indigenous history, you see Texas itself lies within two spheres of pre-Columbian North America. First, the southwestern and the plains areas. And there are three major indigenous cultures that lived in this territory. And first was the ancestral Pueblans from the upper Rio Grande River. Rio Grande region centered west of Texas. Then the Mississippian culture, which extended around the Mississippi River Valley east of Texas. And the civilizations of Mesoamerica, which are around the south part of Texas. The influence of Teotihuacan in northern Mexico peaked around 8500 and declined between the 8th and 10th century. Of course, when the Europeans came to Texas, there were multiple language families, Padawan to Actacapan to Uto-Aztecan, as well as other isolate languages, too. Multiple other tribes. And no one culture was dominant across all of present-day Texas, and there were tons of different peoples. And Native American tribes that lived inside the boundaries of what is now present-day Texas included those of the Alabama tribe, the Apache, Tacopon, Badai, Caddo, Aranama, Comanche, Choctaw, Coshata, Asinai, Junamo, Karankawa, Kickapoo, Kiowa, Tonkawa, and Wichita tribes. And many of these people migrated from north to east during the colonial period. Well, now, of course, the region was primarily controlled by the Spanish until the Texas Revolution. They were most interested in the relationship with the Caddo. Several Spanish missions were opened in this area, but the lack of interest in Christianity meant few were converted. And the Caddo remained relations with both France and Spain. When Spain took control of Louisiana, most of the missions east Texas were closed and abandoned. And once the United States attained Louisiana in the Louisiana Purchase, many of these tribes started moving west. by the 1830s, of course, the U.S. drafted the Indian Rule Act, which was used to facilitate the Trail of Tears. Pre-retribution, Indian agents convinced all the indigenous people to move west, which included the Caddo people, and they moved their way to Texas. Following the Texas Revolution, Texas chose to make peace with the indigenous people, but didn't honor the land claims or agreements. Of course, that meant that most of the native populations moved north into now what is now the Indian Territory. The only people that remained in parts of Texas were Alabama KHOU-KSSF tribes. So the Comanche would take control of much of the western half of the state. That's a bit of the indigenous history of this. Now, of course, for the European side, the colonization of Texas, the first historical document was created in 19 by Spanish explorer Alfonso Alvarez de Pineda. And 9 years later, shipwrecked Spanish explorer Alvar Nunez Cabeza de Vaca and his cohort became the first Europeans in what is now Texas. He reported that in 1528, when the Spanish landed the area, half of the natives died of disease of the bowels and blamed up. And he made observations about the way of life of the Ignaces natives of Texas. Of course, Hernando de Soto's expedition entered into Texas from the east and seeked a route to Mexico, and he passed through a lot of the Caddo's lands, but turned back after reaching the river of Decayo, which was possibly either the Colorado or the Brazos rivers, in which the nomadic people were nomadic. And as a result of all this, the Europeans ignored this area until accidentally settling there in 1685 due to miscalculations by René Robert Cavalier de La Salle, and established a colony at Fort St. Louis, which is located at Matagorda Bay. And it lasted, instead of the Mississippi River, and the colony lasted only 4 years before succumbing to the harsh conditions of natives. Of course, then after the French would be the Spanish, of course. And concerned about France being a threat, they constructed several missions in East Texas among the Caddo Indian tribes. And when France began settling Louisiana, the Spanish authorities responded by founding a series of new missions. One of those, 2 years later, became San Antonio, the first Spanish civilian settlement in the area. Of course, one of the big issues with Texas, of course, has been hostile tribes and the distance from other colonies discouraged settlers from moving to the area, making it one of the least populated provinces of the state. Of course, when the U.S. purchased Louisiana from France, the American authorities insisted the agreement also included Texas. The boundary between New Spain and the U.S. was finally set at the Sabine River in 1819. And eager for new land, many settlers refused to recognize the agreement. Several filibusters raised armies to invade the West. Of course, Texas's history being with Spain, however, of course, Texas had a different fate. Instead of U.S. settlers, it was actually involved in Mexico. You see, when in 1821, the Mexican War of Independence happened, and Mexico gained independence, and Texas territory was actually part of Mexico. And due to its low population, the territory was assigned to other states and territories as well. And the Mexicans, hoping more settlers reduced the Comanche raids, it liberalized its immigration policies to permit immigrants from outside Mexico to Spain. And this ended up not being a good thing, because guess what? Because a lot of U.S. settlers from the United States moved west and expanded rapidly. And those immigrants also flouted Mexican law, especially against slavery. Found out with the U.S. attempts to merge Texas, Mexico decided in 1830 to prohibit immigration from the United States. However, as a result, all these tensions would eventually boil over in 1932 with the Anahuac disturbances, with the first open revolt against Mexican rule, which coincided with a revolt against the nation's president. The Texans sided with the Federalists against the government and drove all Mexican soldiers out of East Texas. And in 1832, they met with the convention to discuss independent statehood, and they did a year later reiterated the demands. When you combine that with Mexico's tensions, it eventually boiled over in 1835 the Battle of Gonzales, again the Texan Revolution. When Mexico President Santa Anna, he personally led his army to end the revolt. Jose Duryea defeated all Texan resistance around the coast. which resulted in the Goliad Massacre. And then, after a 13-day siege, Santa Anna's forces overwhelmed Texan defenders at the Battle of the Alamo, sparked panic around Texas settlers, and eventually Texas declared its independence on March 2nd, 1836, to form the Republic of Texas. It was pretty short-lived, for 10 years. But after 7 weeks of retreat, the Texan army, commanded by Sam Houston, attacked and defeated Lopez de Santa Anna's forces at the Battle of San Jacinto, which effectively ended the Texan Revolution, and Texas became an independent nation. Of course, that being said, that didn't stop all the political battles, because it turned out that there were multiple factions with the new republic. One, nationalists that continued Texas independence, while their opponents advocated the annexation to Texas to the United States. Eventually referenced by a minor conflict, but eventually it turned out that the expansionist James K. Polk won the president, and Texas was finally annexed to the state. And on December 29, 1845, the U.S. Congress admitted Texas to the United States, which officially made Texas the 28th state of the United States. Of course, Texas was later then expanded, of course, when Polk crossed the Rio Grande to start the Mexican-American War, and the Americans dominated Mexico through the conflict, eventually and with several battles in Texas. However, afterwards, the U.S. invaded Mexican territory, and eventually led to the Treaty of Guadalajara, which gave the U.S. undisputed control of all of Texas in 1848. That set up much of Texas' borders, and the final boundaries were settled in the Compromise of 1850. Of course, Texas was then back into war again for the U.S. Civil War when they declared succession to the Confederates in 1861. However, not all Texas favored succession initially, including its Unionist Governor Sam Houston. Of course, while it was far from major battlefields of the Civil War, Texas did contribute large numbers of soldier equipment. Of course, Texas was then descended to anarchy after the surrender of Appomattox, and of course, violence made a major part of Reconstruction. However, like much of the South, Texas was devastated by the war. However, since it wasn't dependent on slaves like the rest, it was able to recover more quickly during the South. Of course, the state also became notorious as a haven from other parts of the country to escape debt, war tensions, and promises, and attracted many more business. As a result, Texas wasn't actually as bad off as some of the other southern states. Of course, Texas then suffered a major issue in 1900 as it suffered the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history, the Galveston hurricane, which completely ruined much of Galveston as a port. And the Galveston hurricane, for those that don't know, it left between 6,000 to 12,000 fatalities, which is the worst of any storm. And then, of course, they found the first oil well in Texas, Spindletop, Yuma. And as a result, they found out that Texas had a lot of oil, and it turned out it created a massive oil boom that shaped much of Texas' economy throughout the 20th century. Transformed the state forever. Of course, the Democratic state legislature did put a poll tax for voting, which disenfranchised most black and poor whites, as well as white primaries as well. And the Democrats crushed competition for Republican parties. Of course, Texas, for the rest of the 1920s and 30s, in the first part, had to deal with both the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, which, as a result, migrants moved on west to California, or moved north to get jobs in the United States to avoid segregation. Of course, World War II had a dramatic impact in Texas as federal money poured in to build bases, munition factories, and more. Also, over 3/4 of a million Texans left for service, and cities exploded with new industry and jobs. And Texas manufactured 3.1% of all U.S. military armaments in World War II, which is 11th of the 48 states. Of course, during around the mid-20th century, of course, Texas began to transform from an agricultural state to one that's more urbanized, industrial. The state's population grew quickly during this period thanks to large levels of migration from outside the states, as well as being part of the Sun Belt. We're diversifying from petroleum to other sorts of stuff. Of course, Texas continued to grow more and more during the 21st century, including Dallas-Fort Worth and Austin. All became major centers of the Texas Democratic parties, while Texas still remains pretty much Republican. Of course, from the mid-2000s to 2019, Texas gained a lot of influx of business relocations from California. And that's because Texas is a lot friendlier to do business than California. Of course, and finally for 2021, the state had a major weather storm emergency that caused the power grid to be overworked, and Texas caused major blackouts, and nearly 3 million Texans were out of power. So yeah, that concludes the history of the U.S. state of. So yeah, quite a bit of stuff to learn about the Lone Star State. Really cool stuff. We're about six. This here we're about 70 nautical miles away from our first stop, so we're not going to be too. We can actually descend a little bit later if you guys want to. We can descend a little bit later, but we're going to head to San Antonio for a bit. I hope you're having a good weekend, guys. So, one of the big things about Texas, though, is, again, Texas is pretty interesting as a state. It's known as the Lone Star State. Now, of course, it's this Texas state flag gets often confused for the Chilean flag. No, seriously, the flag of Chile and the Texas flag are similar. The difference between the Texan flag and the Chilean flag is the different shades of red and blue are different, but the biggest change between Texas and Chile is the fact is while the entire left side of Texas flag is blue on the left, followed by other 2/3 of the flag being half white, half red. The Chilean flag has 1/4 of it being blue, while the top part of it, on the top left part is the blue, and the entire bottom is red on Chile's, and then most of the top right area is white. But it is a pretty unique flag. We're then going to go ahead and get ready to get to another part about Texas. We're going to fly here to San Antonio. We'll talk a bit about Texas geography first. So I know a lot of you thinking, a lot of you guys think about Texas geography. Most people think, Now, the Texas is the second largest state in the U.S. after Alaska and the largest within the continental United States. If it were to be an independent country, Texas would be the 39th largest country in the world by land area. Of course, it is in the south central part of the United States. However, you'd be surprised, but Texas is actually way more geographically diverse than you think about. It has 10 different climatic regions, 14 different soil regions, and 11 distinct ecological regions. As a result, it becomes quite complicated with the different communities. And as a result, Texas can be divided into multiple regions, which includes the Gulf Coastal Plains, Interior Lowlands, Great Plains, and Basin and Range provinces. So to go over briefly about each of these rivers, about each of the provinces here in state Texas, let's go over a few of those, shall we? So the first is the Gulf Coastal Plains, which locates in the southeast corner of the state, and it contains a lot of thick piney woods, and with the interior lowlands consisting of rolling to hilly forested land as well. Across temperate regions around it is Caprock. Then the Great Plains spans across central Texas through the state's panhandle. It's dominated by prairie and steppe. And of course, finally, is the Basin Range, which is at the far west of Texas. It's the most varied between sand hills, Stockton Plateau, desert valleys, wooded mountain slopes, and desert grassland. Create a wide variety of ranges. Of course, this image you guys see here, take a look at the picture, this is actually from Big Bend National Park, which is really striking if you guys have never been to Big Bend. We'll be visiting Big Bend, too. In addition to this as well, Texas has also got over 3,700 named streams and 15 rivers, with the largest being the Rio Grande. The size and unique history of Texas makes its region affiliation debatable, because some people say it's a southern U.S. state, it could be a southwest state, or both. As a result, Texas is quite a very unique state for that reason. Of course, Texas is also quite a diverse state for wildlife. In fact, it's home to 65 different mammal species, 213 species of reptiles and amphibians, including the American green tree frog, and believe it or not, the greatest diversity of bird life of all U.S. states, 590 species in all. There's also several wasp species for important groundwork for studying a lot of paper wasp. During the spring, the spring Texas wildflowers of the state, such as the state flower, the bluebonnet, finds highways throughout the state of Texas as well. So the bluebonnet is the state flower. Really cool stuff. And then, of course, the climate. And Texas has a multiple different climate zones. So the Panhandle actually has colder winters than the rest of North Texas. While the Gulf Coast has pretty mild winters, Texas has a wide variations in precipitation patterns. El Paso averages around 8 inches of rainfall. However, southeast Texas can get as much as 64 inches of rain a year, and Dallas is more moderate at 37 inches. Snow falls multiple times each winter in the Panhandle Mountains regions of West Texas, and once or twice a year in North Texas, and once every 3 years in Central and East Texas. And of course, for extreme weather, thunderstorms do strike into Texas pretty often, especially the eastern and northeastern parts of the state. Also, tornadoes do also cover the north section of Texas. And believe it or not, you guys won't believe this, the state experiences the most tornadoes of any U.S. state, 139 tornadoes a year. And they strike most frequently in the North Texas Panhandle. And that's not bad enough, you also have to deal with hurricanes, because some of the most destructive hurricanes in U.S. history have happened. Most notably the 1900 Galveston hurricane, but also Hurricane Harvey also did a lot of damage. In fact, Harvey became even more costly than that of Katrina. So yes, Texas is very unique in states. Oh yes, and the Jaguar could still roam. Yes, that is also true. Jaguars can roam the states. They used to be way more common back in the old days before. Yes, it was last extirpated in 1948, but there could be some population still moving here because there's still sightings of jaguars in Arizona. Yeah, its former range was Texas. Its former range was California, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. It went as far north as that, and it went as far south as Argentina. You're absolutely right. We're gonna go ahead and descend down to we're gonna descend down to 2000 as we're heading down to San Antonio. So we're gonna head down to San Antonio for we're gonna descend down San Antonio. I hope you're all having a good weekend here. We're here in beautiful Texas. Also, happy Easter, everyone, as well. I hope you guys enjoy your Easter today. I know that's going on here as well. So for next week's sort of streams, for for next week, our next sort of streams next week, we will be back with the States of 50 streams here on Friday and Sunday. We'll finish up part 3 of our series next week as we visit Iowa and Wisconsin. So we'll be heading back to the Midwest for Iowa and Wisconsin. And then afterwards, after next week, in 2 weeks, we'll finally head to we'll first head up to the West Coast in California. Finally, we'll finally go to our first West Coast state, California, which should be exciting for a lot of you guys to finally head to California for some nice flying. So we're now going to talk a little bit about the U.S. territory of San Antonio here. So San Antonio. This area here is actually Texas's third most largest metro area in the state of Texas and the seventh most populous city in the country. Believe it or not, this is also Texas's second most populous city after Houston, founded back in 1718. The first civil settlement and was now present-day Texas, and it was the most oldest municipality in the state, which celebrates its 300th anniversary in 2018. It was named after the 1691 Spanish expedition, priest Saint Anthony of Padua. It features two UNESCO World Heritage Sites, include the Alamo and the San Antonio Missions National Historical Park, are part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015. Other attractions include the Riverwalk, the Towers of America, SeaWorld San Antonio, the Alamo, and Marriage Island. In addition to this as well, it's also home to 32 million tourists a year visit San Antonio, and it's home to the 5-time NBA champion San Antonio Spurs, as well as the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo. And finally, the U.S. Armed Forces had numerous facilities in the city, including Fort Sam Houston, Lackland Air Base, Randolph Air Base, Camp Bullis, and Camp Stanley. Lastly, it is one of the largest majority Hispanic cities in the United States. So yes, much of the population is Hispanic majority in Antonio. And of course, one of our sites we will be visiting on our way to San Antonio is the Alamo Mission, found in the East by Catholic missionaries. It was the site of the Battle of Alamo in 1836, a pivotal event of the Texas Revolution where American folk heroes James Bowie and Davy Crockett were killed. And now is the museum for the Alamo Plaza Historic District, part of the San Antonio Mission's World Heritage Site. Originally named the Mission de San Antonio, it was a major mission, and it was secularized in 1793. After the war, the U.S. Army used the facility for quartermaster depots and then abandoned it in 1876. As a result, the Alamo has been preserved since 1891 by the Daughters of the Republic of Texas. Help preserve this place. But it's really cool, though. Visiting the Alamo and something is something you should definitely do in San Antonio. And finally, for our first stop today is Stinson Municipal Airport. Kilo Sierra Sierra Foxtrot. It is actually the second oldest GA airport in continuous operation in the country after College Park Airport, established in 1915, when the Stinson family leased land from the city of San Antonio. Stinson's used it to operate a lot of the mechanics and stuff. And it became the main civil airport in San Antonio in 1915. It's still used as a reliever for San Antonio International. But it's still pretty cool. It's an old historic airport, and basically the Stinson family, if you're unaware of it, they're the ones who founded the Stinson Aircraft Company. And they produced a lot of interesting aircraft during their time. Most notably, the Stinson Company produced some really well-known aircraft. Most notably, the Stinson V-76 Citadel and the Stinson 108 are two of their most famous aircraft produced. So we're going to go ahead and land very shortly. We're just about finally here at San Antonio, and we'll make our first landing. We'll also be checking out some of the San Antonio missions actually around here. The airport is not far from the San Antonio Missions National Historical Park. We might be able to see a little bit of those. We make our way. Gotta give me some drink. But yeah, San Antonio is a really cool city. Some of its sister cities also include Monterrey, Mexico, Guadalajara, Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, and Tel Aviv. Probably some. There we go. We're officially here in beautiful San Antonio, Texas, for our first stop here at Stinson, Minnesota Airport. So we'll just chill here for a little bit if you guys want to catch up for streams. We're on the Southeast Asian server. And our route here for today is this route. Thankfully, we won't be flying super high altitudes for the rest of the legs. I think we can fly pretty low for the rest of the trip. Don't have to worry about flying super high here. So yeah, so other things about San Antonio that are pretty well known here in the city. San Antonio is also home to several other really important stuff. For one, the River Walk is one of the most visited attractions. I like to visit and look at the river and stuff, shopping. Of course, it's also known for a lot of one of the big things about San Antonio is they love the Spurs, led by Greg Popovich. They also have some other sports too, including college football with the TSA Roadrunners and minor league soccer with San Antonio FC. get ready to move on here to let's head over to San Antonio, shall we? Let's see if we can find the Alamo. So this is downtown San Antonio we're flying over. We're gonna find the Alamo if it's. We're gonna fly a little lower, so we can find the Alamo. Take a picture for the Discord. Alamo. Here's the Alamo Dome, home of the UTSA Roadrunner. Find the Alamo. There she is. Alamo. There she is, guys. The Alamo's right here. Sorry about that. I started to adjust the camera and do all this sort of stuff. I was trying to get the Alamo in screenshot. Got to crash into any of the buildings, though. Downtown San Antonio. So we're going to head our way over to Austin now. Here's another screenshot of San Antonio. So we're going to head to Austin for a bit, but before we get to Austin, we're going to go ahead and talk about Texas economy of Texas as we head down to Austin. So economically speaking, Texas has a gross state product of $2.6 trillion, second highest of any U.S. state besides California. Its gross state product is actually greater than the entire GDP of Brazil, which is the world's 8th largest economy. So yes, Texas has a larger GDP than Brazil does. It ranks 22nd among U.S. states' median household income with $64,000, and its poverty rate is 14%, which is the 14th highest poverty. Its large populations, abundance of natural resources, thriving cities with leading to higher education has made Texas a very large, diverse economy. Historically, petroleum was what really grew Texas for much of the 20th century. And Texas is among the most business-friendly states. In fact, it has 346 millionaires in Texas, second largest population of millionaires in the country. And it states the fact Texas has low taxes, among the lowest in the U.S. country. Of course, historically, another big part of Texas' economy has mainly been featuring with agriculture and mining. Texas has the most farms and highest acreage in the United States, and it's ranked #1 for revenue generated from total livestock and livestock products. It is also ranked second in agricultural revenue behind California, and much of its agricultural receipts contain beef cattle production, which is 56% of it. This is followed by cotton, greenhouse nursery, broiler chickens, and dairy products. In addition to that, it also has a thriving fishing industry. With mineral resources, Texas leads the nation in crude cement, crushed stone, lime, salt, sand, and gravel. Though drought in the 21st century has costed billions of dollars, though Texas agriculture is still a very mighty state in agriculture. In addition to this as well, Texas is a major energy hub of the United States. Ever since discovery of oil, energy has been a dominant force politically and economically in Texas. According to a 2014 study, if Texas was its own country, it would be the 6th largest oil producer in the world. Yeah, pretty nice. Of course, the state and oil and gas industries was regulated by the Railroad Commission of Texas. In addition to petroleum, its recoverable petroleum reserves are around 15 billion barrels of crude oil, 9.5 billion barrels of natural gas. And it's home to the largest refinery in the United States, Port Arthur Refinery. Also leader in natural gas production at 28.8 billion cubic feet per day, which is 32% of the nation's production. As a result, many of the largest petroleum companies are based in Texas. ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Halliburton, Marathon Oil, and however, unlike the rest of the nation, Texas is unique as it's on its own power grid, the Texas Interconnection, and it has a deregulated electric service, and second in total electricity production behind Florida, ahead of Florida. And believe it or not, Texas is also a major wind power. In fact, 10% of electricity in Texas is from wind turbines. So yes, Texas economically is actually a very mighty. Yes, I think I've seen this video, but yes, Texas absolutely could be one of the most powerful states. I mean, it makes sense. Tons of resources. It's very business friendly, rich in resources. Its strategic area. Yeah, Texas can absolutely be a powerful U.S. state. It's already got a lot of potential. Like, no wonder Texas is such a leader in this nation for a lot of reasons. Energy, it's an energy power. tons of resources, strong agriculture, lots of population, very business friendly too, which helps. But yes, for a lot of points, that's why Texas is can be a very powerful state in the country. So right down here is we're actually going much of this area here. We're actually going around the Texas Hill Country. If you notice, the area we're flying around here is Texas Hill Country. So you'll see lots of hills and stuff all across this area of Texas. This is definitely one of the more scenic little areas here in the state. It's definitely got some really cool airports and stuff here too. But yes, there's also lots of really cool communities here. New Braunfels, for example, home of Texas State, home of Schlitterbahn, San Marcos, home of Texas State University. So, yeah, Texas is definitely a really neat state. Though, if I were to visit anywhere in Texas, I would probably like to visit the Austin area. Austin would be nice. Not too far from San Antonio, not too far from Houston, not too far from Dallas. You also have some pretty good nature stuff too around the hill country area. Got some nice scenery here. So we're gonna enter. We're not gonna be too far away from Austin, Texas, state capital of Texas. We're gonna be heading to Austin very shortly. So Austin is the capital city of Texas. It was incorporated in 1839. It's the 26th largest metro area in the United States and the nation's 12th most populous city. And it is the second most populous state capital city in the country after Phoenix, with a population of 974,000 people. Its urban area is 1.8 million, and metro is 2.47 million. Um, of course, Austin residents of Austin are known as Austinites. They include a diverse mix of government employees, college students, high-tech workers, and blue-collar workers. The city's official slogan is as Austin is known as the live music capital of the world due to its many musicians and live music venues, as well as its PBS concert Austin City Limits, and is the site of the South by Southwest Festival, which is a conglomeration of parallel film, interactive media, and music festival. It's also known as Silicon Hills because a lot of the tech and development companies have made their way in Austin. But of course, Austin has an unofficial motto. You probably heard this before. Keep Austin weird, which supports a lot of local businesses from being overrun by corporations. It's also known as the city of the violet crown. Austin, emerging from a strong focus in government education, Austin has since the 90s become a center for tech and business. Lots of different contracts and businesses have made their ways here in Austin, including 3M, AM, Advanced Micro, AMD, Amazon, Apple, Dell, Facebook, General Motors, Google, Intel, Texas Industries, and it's also home to one of the largest universities in the United States, with the University of Texas at Austin, the Longhorns. And finally, it finally got its own major professional sports team finally in 2021 when they got Austin FC for the Major League Soccer. But yeah, Austin's a really cool city, and definitely one of the places in Texas I really wanted to visit. Austin. There's a lot of things going for it from Austin. One of the big things about Austin is tons of local businesses and such. Well, Texas has a lot of events. They have the O. Henry Punoff about spoken word competition, as well. They also have one of the largest pride parades here in the state. Of course, Austin is very rich in cuisine, especially with Texas barbecue and Tex-Mex. They got in one of those restaurants, been Franklin Barbecue, is sold every brisket every day. They just sell out brisket. Also, breakfast tacos, queso's popular, Polashes due to the Czech and German immigrants. Oasis restaurant as well. Tons of food trucks, craft beer scenes, and of course Texas chili. And Austin's also blessed with music. Tons of course, live music is a main deal here. Yeah, Nashville isn't the only major music city here in the United States. Austin's a big one. And lots of films have been filmed here around the Austin area. From the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Secondhand Lions to the movie The Alamo, True Grit, and more. So lots of films have been made here in the Austin area. And finally, of course, in terms of sports, Austinites do love Texas Longhorn football. Texas Longhorns are a massive deal. It's like its own major league team because they love Texas. They like the Longhorns, especially for football. Texas football is king. But yeah, Austin's a great city. Love to visit. Of course, it does have its own airport here too. Um, it has Austin Bergstrom. We decided to check out Austin. We've been in Austin before. It's a great city. Yeah, beautiful hill country though, guys. This is actually pretty nice here in the hill country. We should get some pretty good snapshots when we get near Austin. Yeah, really enjoying the stream, guys. Here you go, guys. Austin. Yeah, if you look to your left, you can see the hill country. You can take a little GA plane through a lot of it. Go through the mountain. Here we go, guys. Austin, Texas. So behind us is Austin Bergstrom. I would like that for Bergstrom to be a hub for Fireflyer. That would be a nice hub. I mean, it's right next to downtown Austin. It actually has some nice areas for general aviation. Austin's actually pretty nice to fly around. Yay. There it is, guys. Texas State Capitol. Beautiful Austin. There's the state capitol building here. And then, of course, no trip to Texas will ever be complete without the University of Texas. That's right, the Longhorns, baby. Go Horns. This here is Darrell K. Royal Stadium down below us. Over 100,000 people watch Texas Longhorn football. They love Texas football. Produced many icon football players. So, so we're gonna head over to Temple, Texas for the next stop. Let's go over some more of the Texas slides as we make our way over to Temple. So, of course, Texas has some really unique culture. You see, Texas is pretty unique because culturally wise, Texas is a blend of multiple different cultures between Southern culture, Western culture, Southwestern influences with varying degrees. For example, the breakfast burrito is a combination of all three different regions. Of course, Texas is also known for its own culture, is immigration all over the world. And Texas, as a result, has made a strong mark in both national and international pop culture. The entire state is strongly associated with the image of the cowboys shown in westerns and country western music. And the state's oil tycoons were also part of another hit TV series, Dallas. Finally, its international slogan, "Don't Mess with Texas," actually began as an anti-littering establishment advertisement. However, since the campaign's inception, it's now become that of Texas' own identity. And of course, Texas has also its own perception too. Texas size, which describes the massive size of Texas. After all, it was the largest state until Alaska became a state. So basically, everything's bigger in Texas, even though in reality, Alaska's bigger. Of course, Texas is rich in art and music. And it's Houston, for example, is one of only 5 cities with permanent professional resident companies in all performing arts districts, including that of opera, orchestra, ballet, and theater. And thanks to its vibrancy in performing arts, the Houston Theater District is second in the country among theater seats in the downtown areas. It's also got a modern art museum in Fort Worth and multiple different other Hall of Fames and museums, like the Cowgirl Hall of Fame, Will Rogers Memorial Center, and the Amon Carter Museum. And Dallas features the Deep Ellum District, popular for blues and jazz in the southern United States, with artists like Blind Willie Jefferson, Robert Johnson, Cuddy Leadbelly Ledbetter, and Bessie Smith all playing its club. Of course, we just talked about Austin earlier. Has more live music venues per capita than any other music hotbed, which includes Nashville, Memphis, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, or New York. Yes, Austin, Texas. Of course, a lot of it goes for the nightclubs on 6th Street, as well as many festivals Southwest and Austin city limits. And finally, even San Antonio's gotten the claim of that too, being home of the DiGiorno music capital of the world, which has a great appreciation and awareness for DiGiorno music, which basically is Tex-Mex music. Pretty cool stuff. Of course, Texans absolutely love their sport. And among the Big Four leagues, Texas has 2 NFL teams: the Dallas Cowboys, the most famous team in the state, and the Houston Texans. In baseball, we have the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers. We have 3 NBA teams, all 3 in 3 big cities of San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas, and an NHL team in Dallas. Of course, outside of the Big Four, Texas has its own WNBA team, 3 MLS teams, and a National Women's Soccer League team. But of course, as much as professional sports are a big deal, college athletics is extremely embedded in Texas football, especially American football. No joke, American football is absolutely massive in Texas. Basically, to me, and it's not just collegiately either. Their love of American football goes even into high school days. Is high school. They love American football. American football is massive in high school sports. Basically, Texans treat American football as Hoosiers do for basketball. Like people from Indiana do in basketball. Um, Texans absolutely love American football. I mean, there's even a whole thing about Friday Night Lights that talks about all about Texas's love for American. Of course, college athletics is a big deal. There's 12 Division One FBS schools, more than any other nations, and 4 of these schools claim the national championship. University of Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M Aggies, TCU Horned Frogs, and the SMU Mustangs. And one particular one of those, of course, Texas got a fierce in-state rivalry between Texas A&M. There's other schools too in that state, like Texas Tech, Baylor, University of Houston, Rice, Texas State, UTSA, UTEP, and a couple of others. And finally, Texans love rodeo. In fact, the world's first rodeo was actually hosted here in Texas, and Texas is also home to the largest rodeo in the world, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, and there's also one in Fort Worth. So yes, Texans absolutely love their sports. Texans absolutely. And finally, the last bit of Texas I want to cover before we end up going before we get into transportation is gotta be the food. Texan cuisine. Um, it includes that of its southwestern culture inspired Tex-Mex foods and many other groups. Chano Mexican, Native American, Creole, African American, German, Czech, and other European American groups. And as a result, Texas is quite diverse for cuisine. But one of the biggest specialties of Texan food has gotta be barbecue. In fact, barbecue became really popular with cowboys in the 19th century to cook the tough beef from their cattle. And as a result, it became very important. And many of the barbecue here is served with white bread, spicy sauces, pickles, um, sliced onion, and jalapenos with sides such as pinto beans, potato, rice salad, and cabbage. Of course, Texas also absolutely loves its steak, beef. Uh, Steak's a big deal here. So as a result, beef barbecue is a big deal here in the state. Not so much pork, but beef is a big. And finally, Tex-Mex, which is a hybrid cuisine, combines that of northeastern Mexican cuisine and that of suit those from Texas palates. And it's grown since to this day as well, featuring tacos, enchiladas, tostitas, along with rice and beans, not found in traditional Mexican cuisine. So yes, Texan cuisine definitely plays a big role for the United States. So that wraps up our culture of Texas. To prepare for our last stop here. Lots of stuff. Of course, we still have more to talk about as we go for our last leg. Finally, on the last part about cuisine as well, um, Texas has actually been a big part of the food and beverage industry. Dr. Pepper was actually found here in Texas, in Waco. Frito-Lay is headquartered here, and the Frito Pie is a popular recipe on large events. Bluebell Creameries, a famous manufacturer, was headquartered and founded in Brenham, Texas. And finally, Whataburger, the national hamburger of Texas. So, pretty big deal here. So, we're about to make our second stop here in Temple. We should be approaching this pretty soon. So we're going to approach Temple, Texas, here for our next stop. So Temple, Texas, located here in the central region of Texas, population of 82,000 people. It's part of the Killeen Temple Fort Cazavos area, which has a metro area of 475,000 people. It was founded as a railroad town by the Gulf Colorado and Santa Fe Railroad in 1880. It was a major railroad town for this part of Texas. It also became home to numerous clinics throughout the old days. Nowadays, Temple now thrives with both good distribution and a regional medical center. Nowadays, what leads Temple, Texas. And of course, it has its own railroad and heritage museum that commemorates the historical railroad significance of railroads here. And of course, it's also within 30 miles of Fort Cavazos, which puts a big part of the city's economy too. So, and then of course, our airport is Broughton Miller Central Texas Regional. Will be our second stop. It was built in 1942 as Temple Army Airfield. It was used as a sub base for the Waco Army Airfield, and was used as a basic flying school by the Army Air Force's Flying Training Command. And it's mainly for multi-engine transition training and combat crew assembling on the. Oh, hey, we got a follow here. Good to see you, Ruben Laud. Hey, Ruben. Thank you for the follow, my dude. I hope you're having a good day here today. We're here in the U.S. state of Texas here today. Where we started our day back in Houston. We went our way from Houston over to San Antonio. and then we're flying across Central Texas. We're past Austin, now we're into Temple. So I hope you're doing well, my dude. So of course, post-war, it ended and became airline service flights until the 1980s. So that is Temple Airport. Here it is, guys, our second stop. Beautiful, beautiful Texas here. We're gonna make our second stop here in Temple. Our third and final stop is going to be is Fort Worth. We're going to stay here for just about a minute or two as we prepare for our final leg up in Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. So this is going to be a bit of a leg left to go. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along here. We've just got one last leg left to go. Oh yes, Dallas Fort Worth are finally getting improved photogrammetry, which is going to be about time though. Yeah, that's going to be coming out in April. That means we might get to see update a little sooner than I expected. I didn't know. I didn't know it would be right in time for Texas. But yeah, we're going to visit the Dallas Fort Worth area. It's going to be pretty. Let's go ahead and prepare for last leg into the Dallas Fort Worth area. We're going to head our way over to Waco first. We'll be flying into Waco. Flying up to 2,000 feet once again. So as for next Wednesday, I don't know what we're going to be doing next Wednesday. I might fly the Dream. I may do another airliner thing again. I'm probably going to take the Dreamliner. And I'm thinking about taking the Dreamliner over, I believe from Zurich. I want to do some flying out of Zurich to, or maybe yeah, take it out of one of our hubs. I don't know. I might also fly the 737 Max. I don't know. I'll probably take the. I know I haven't done a lot of flying with the 737 Max, but I may want to take some 737 Max flights in the UK and Ireland. So probably going to do Manchester to Dublin and then Dublin to Edinburgh. That's probably what I'm thinking about doing. Do some flying out of Manchester. Something like that. I think that'd be good. But yeah, I'm still waiting for the PMDG stuff to finally return. Because that's what I really wanted to see back is the. So Waco, Texas is where we're going to be visiting next. Waco is located in McLennan County. It's situated around the Brazos River. It's halfway between Dallas and Austin. Population 144,000 people, making it the 24th most populous city in the state. Its metro area is 307,000 people. Waco is most well known for being the heart of Texas and the buckle of the Bible Belt. But of course, the big part about Texas is it's home to several notable attractions in the state. They include the Hawaiian Falls Water Park in the Grand Lodge of Texas, one of the largest Grand Lodges in the world. It also has the Waco Suspension Bridge, the single span suspension bridge in 1870. It also features the Waco Mammoth National Monument, which they found 24 Columbian mammoths and other animals, including a tortoise, a camel, and saber-toothed tiger. And downtown Waco is also home to the Magnolia Market, which was a shopping complex that was actually built from a repurposed grain silos and built in the 1950s. And it's operated by Chip and Joanna Gaines of the HGTV series Fixer Upper. It also is a college town because it's home to the Baylor Bears athletics teams that have won. Their football teams won 9 conference titles. Its women and men's basketball teams have both won national championships here in Waco. Finally, Waco was also the scene of the infamous Waco siege in 1993, in which 6 branch Davidians, 4 agents of the U.S. States, the ATF, passed away. So that is Waco. Waco was also where Dr. Pepper was invented. Here's, guys, Waco, Texas. Just 114 nautical miles out of Dallas, so we're going to be pretty close in. Dallas, Texas. Yeah, there's Waco. There's McLean Stadium, home of the Baylor Bears. There's the Magnolia Market. There's the Baylor University. There's there's the Riverside Stadium. Now we're going to officially head to Texas. Okay, guys, so we're now going to officially we're now officially heading to Dallas. Before we get to the Dallas area, we're going to have some more slides to cover. We're going to finish up this part of slides. So we have transportation in Texas to cover. So in terms of Texas and its transportation stuff, one of the big parts about Texas transportation is that the state's large size route train historically complicated transportation. So it's been compensated by building the nation's largest highway and railway system in the country. The regulatory authority here maintains the state highways system, regulates aviation and public transportation. In terms of highways, as of 2005, over 79,000 miles of public highway crisscross Texas, which is the largest in the country. It has 17 toll roads and more. So Texas has the most highways of any U.S. state in the entire country. In addition, Texas also has the second most airports of any state in the country, with 730 airports. The largest in Texas by size and passengers include DFW, the second largest airport by area in the country, and the fourth busiest port in the world. And in traffic, DFW is the fourth busiest in the world. Followed by Houston Intercontinental Airport, the hub for United Airlines. The next five largest include Austin Bergstrom, Houston Hobby, San Antonio International, historic Dallas Love, and El Paso International. And the smallest airport to be designated as an international airport is Del Rio International. In addition to aviation, Texas also has a lot of ports. There are about 1,500 of them dotted across the Texas coast. They employ nearly 1 million people and average a handle of 317 metric tons. And one of those ports is the Port of Houston, the busiest port in the U.S. in foreign tonnage. Second in overall tonnage and 10th worldwide. And it also has some railroad stuff too. In fact, Texas has the most length in railroad miles, around 17,000 miles. It peaked at 17,000 miles, but by 2000 it's about 14,000 miles. But it's still the most covered in railroads of any U.S. state. So yes, Texas actually has a lot of transportation stuff too. More than just automobiles. So let's talk about some fun facts about the Lone Star State to cover. The oldest tree in the state is a coastal live oak, and it is the oldest tree near Fulton. The tree has an estimated age of over 1,500 years old. So if it was still alive, it would probably be around the time of seeing the Byzantine Empire. Go figure. In fact, Texas has got some of the richest bat diversity in the country. More species of bats live in Texas than any other part of the country. You can find a lot of them around the Austin area, but also around Big Bend National Park in Guadalupe Mountains. Texas is the only state to have 6 different nations flying over, which would be Spain, France, Mexico, the Republic of Texas, the Confederate States, and the United States of America. 6 different nations. Dr. Pepper was invented in Waco in 1885. The Dublin Dr. Pepper, 85 miles west, still uses the pure cane sugar in its product. And finally, Dr. Pepper, there is also no period in the doctor. Texas has the first dome stadium in the United States. It was built in Houston, known as the Astrodome. Finally, of course, the Heisman Trophy, awarded to the most outstanding player in college football, was actually named after John William Heisman, the first full-time coach and athletic director at Rice University in Houston. Again, to show you even more about how important American football is to the U.S. state. That concludes some of our Texas state facts. And now here's some well-known people in the Lone Star. We have Alvin Ailey, choreographer from Rogers, Texas. Steve Austin, found in Texas. He's actually from Austinville, Virginia, but he's a very notable person for it. Gene Autry, the legendary country singer from Tioga, Texas. Actress Kathy Baker from Midland. The infamous outlaw Clyde Barrow from Tellico. Texas is also home to 2 U.S. presidents, Dwight D. Eisenhower from Denison, Texas. He's also a Major General. A.J. Foyt, a star auto racer from Houston. Buddy Holly. You guys probably know about Buddy Holly. He tragically died in a plane crash in 1988. But that killed his then promising young career out of Lubbock, Texas. Infamous, the man himself, the original Mr. House, Howard Hughes. The original Tony Stark, industrialist and film producer from Houston. U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson from Stonewall. Legendary actor, war hero, Audie Murphy from Kingston. The iconic country singer, Willie Nelson from Abbott. Decorated Admiral Chester Nimitz from Fredericksburg. And historic aviator Wiley Post from Grand Saline, Texas. So yeah, that is the notable people from the Lone Star State of Texas. Yeah, guys, that is some of the historical figures about Texas from our Lone Star State. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We will be preparing for So now we're going to get close to Dallas, Texas. Yep, we don't have much far left to go. Hey, Ron Dog ETC, good to see you, my dude. I hope you're doing well, Ron Dog. I hope you're having a good day. We're here in Texas. We're actually on our last leg of our stream here. We're flying. We started in Houston Hobby, where we're at right now. We started Houston Hobby. We went up to downtown Houston. Then we went west to San Antonio. This was the longest leg. Then from San Antonio, we went through downtown San Antonio, crossed over to Austin, Texas, and then we made our stop here in Temple. Then finally, we went to Waco. Now we're heading to the DFW Metroplex. Is up. So that's what we're doing here today. We're heading down to Dallas. So let's go ahead and talk about Dallas as we head over to Dallas, Texas, the most populous city of its own metroplex, the fourth most populous metro area in the United States with 7.5 million people. Dallas's population is 1.3 million, making it the U.S.'s ninth most populous city and the third most populous city in Texas, after Houston and San Antonio. However, Dallas is most important for being the largest metropolitan area in the southern United States and the largest inland metro area that lacks any navigable link. And it was mainly developed as a major railroad lines and allowed access to cotton, cattle, and oil around the state of Texas. And as a result, with the interstate highway, it became one of the biggest transportation hubs in the country, as well as a strong industrial and finance center and major inland port due to all the railroad lines and the construction of DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, one of the largest and busiest airports in the world. Dominant sectors of Dallas include defense, financial services, information technology, telecommunications, and transportation. DFW Metroplex has 23 Fortune 500 companies, second most in Texas. And there's over 41 colleges and universities in its metro area, more than any other metro area in Texas. And has a myriad of ethnic and religious backgrounds and is home to one of the largest LGBT communities in the country. Oh, but the plane I'm in? The plane I am today, Ron Dog, it is the Cessna Corvallis. I think I misspelled it too. It's spelled like this, Corvallis. Yes, it's the Cessna Corvallis from Coronado. So that's Dallas, Texas, for you. Dallas, in terms of culture, Dallas is most well known for its arts district. It's the largest continuous art district in the country, home to many famous art venues like Museum of Art, symphony centers, orchestras, and more. Dallas also is blessed with its barbecue, Mexican, and Tex-Mex cuisine, including the famous frozen margarita. And it's home to the State Fair of Texas, one of the largest state fairs in the country. And one of those including the Cotton Bowl. Brings a lot of crowds to the city. And sports are a big deal here in Dallas. Downtown Dallas has both the Dallas Mavericks, the Dallas Stars. However, the Metroplex area also has the Dallas Cowboys and the Texas Rangers. So, pretty big stuff. But yes, Dallas sports are a big deal, especially the Cowboys, who won 5 Super Bowls and one of the most valuable sports franchises in the world. Pretty big stuff here in Dallas. Of course, the next city in the Metroplex is Arlington. Arlington is actually a population of 394,000, and it's actually the second largest city in the county after Fort Worth, and the seventh most populous city in Texas, and it's most well known for being the home of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers sports team. But also, it's also most well known for being home to the U.S. Bowling Congress and Bowling Museum. So it's a major place for bowling, unbelievably, Arlington. And finally, of course, the last major city in the DFW area is Fort Worth, historic Fort Worth, Texas. Population of 918,000 people. It is the second largest city in the Metroplex. And of course, Fort Worth is a rich history dating back to 1849 as an army outpost, and it was historically been the center of the Texas Longhorn cattle trade. Of course, Dallas had more population majority, but Fort Worth has continued to grow, and it's home to many famous museums and stuff, including the Kimball Art Museum, Barn Art Museum of Fort Worth, the Amon Carr Museum of American Art, and the Sid Richardson Museum. And also is home to several universities, but most notably Texas Christian University. And some of the multinational corporations are headquartered here, including Bell Textron and American Airlines. But of course, a big part of Texas Fort Worth's culture is gotta be its cowboy. Of course, nothing is more important for culture than its art, particularly that of some of its nightclubs, the Billy Bob's Honky Tonk, with nearly 100,000 square feet of space, as well as being home to the Texas Cowboy Hall of Fame, the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame, too. And of course, you can't forget the Fort Worth Stockyard. Can't forget about that going through the stockyards of Fort Worth. And our final stop today is Fort Worth Meacham, which will be our final stop. And of course, Fort Worth Meacham is, it was opened back in 1925 as Fort Worth Municipal. It's named after its former mayor, Henry C. Meacham. It was actually the city's main airport until 1953 when they moved to Greater Southwest International Airport. And since 1953, it's mainly used for aircraft, commuter flights, and pilots. There have been attempts of people trying to do flying to Meacham, but that hasn't really lasted very long. And it's mainly used for general aviation purposes, with some charter flights. So yeah, Fort Worth Meacham, that is our last stop. That's going to conclude all the slides here in the U.S. state of Texas. That should conclude, that's all the slides for today. So a bit interesting stuff about Dallas. We should be approaching here soon. Obviously, we all know about Dallas-Fort Worth. Absolutely enormous airport. I've been into it. Huge. However, Dallas is also home to the more historically significant Dallas Love Field. And that was also where Southwest Airlines was actually founded. But yeah, I enjoyed doing some flights out of Dallas Love. I think Dallas Love's a nice airport to do some flying. I think it would make a pretty good little hub, like for a smaller hub. Dallas Love would make a pretty good one. As well. So when we get to AT&T Stadium, which is one of our waypoints, this massive stadium has 80,000 people, but with stadium room can expand to over 100,000 people. And at the time, it was the most expensive stadium built at the time, to 1.15 billion US dollars. Actually, no, it's 1.3 billion dollars it took to build this stadium. New home of the Cowboys. It features a massive. It features an absolutely enormous video board, which was around 175 feet twin screens. But it's still one of the largest in the world. It had broke many attendance records, including the NBA All-Star Game, mobile NFL events, hosted the college football playoff game, Big 12 championship, and more. But AT&T Stadium is absolutely huge. Now it's also going to host the FIFA World Cup in 2026. Oh yeah, Dallas. Yeah, it's major Southwest hub. I work for Virgin America. Yeah, Dallas International is absolutely huge. DFW is absolutely no question wrong. It's as huge as it says, and they fly to so many destinations out of the DFW airport. Stupid. At one point, it was the busiest airport in the world during COVID, but it's not been that way anymore. But they fly to so many destinations. I mean, they fly to nearly every continent but Africa. Got destinations in South America, Oceania, Asia, Europe, Middle East. And of course, Dallas still doesn't have photogrammetry. The world up, I think the city update is going to come out next week, maybe. Is the new city update, and they said Dallas is going to be one of those that's going to get a photogrammetry update. So maybe I get updated pictures for Dallas by then. Yeah, for some reason, Dallas itself never got photogrammetry. Might be the fact it's one of the nation's largest cities. Really weird. It's working for the airlines, but no work balance. Yeah, understandable. Also, Dallas around this area is also where JFK was assassinated. Guys, talk more about your history. Yeah, here's American Airlines Arena, home of the Mavericks. Unfortunately, unfortunately for Mavericks fans, they missed out on the playoffs. Now we're heading to Arlington. Oh, this is 2024. It is MSFS 2024, my dude. It is MSFS 2024. The new sim. And no, I did not fake it for 2020 and put it for 2024 to get more views. I'm not that type of person. I'm not that low. I'm not gonna go that low, okay? I know. Not like that. And I think we found Jerry World right in front of us. Is Jerry World, aka ATT Stadium. There's also Globe Life Field, which I don't think is in the sim, but Globe Life Field is the new home of the Rangers that was built in 2021. Um, it's hosted the World Series in 2023, which the Rangers won their first title. Definitely a pretty cool stadium as well. Really unique seating and stuff too. But yeah, they replaced it Choctaw Stadium, which was actually not that old of a stadium, dating back to 1994. It was just, I think the issue was, it was just, the problem is playing outside in the Texas conditions was not very good. It's a great, that old ballpark was a good venue. It was just the Texas heat, man. It's just, you don't realize how hot it can be in the summer, especially with baseball being played in the summer. I don't think it would have to. I don't think it would have to be much of a guess to why. I don't think it would take much to realize it. What? Oh, what do I use for my nearest airport and stuff? Ah, good question. It is actually a little piece of software. I believe it is. I think I posted on Scruffy Team. Oh, actually, wait, they did get the new ballpark in here. There, the Choctaw Stadium's here. There's all three of the four Texas. Let me. There we go. Yep, here it is, guys. The new sporting stadiums. Yeah, here's the sporting venues here. This thing. I want to get back. Here it is. Here's the thing in the chat. Right. That's the software I use. Since Flow doesn't work for MSFS 2024 yet, I don't think it could. I'm using this one. So that is the one I mainly use. Simple overlay. You just put in your. No worries, my dude. I'm happy to give you that. Now the Fort Worth area. We'll fly over the stockyards, and now we'll wrap up today's stream. Yeah, we got one last thing left to go. Oh, really? Yep. Yeah, this is the last leg. Dallas Fort Worth is our last legs. This is downtown Fort Worth. Yep. We started all the way back in Houston, but we had a long way to go. Here it is, guys. Downtown Fort Worth. Here it is, guys. There's the famous stockyards here in Fort Worth. So there's the Fort Worth stockyards right in front of us. World famous. Find lots of stuff about cowboy here, and then we're gonna go ahead and yeah, all this stuff below us is the Fort Worth stockyard. Get the taste of a cowboy's life. Stations, you can see daily rodeos. Oh yeah, and also by the way, north of us, see that large thing that was built up here? That thing you see built right not far north of the airport, that is the Texas Motor Speedway. Here we go. Oh boy. And that is it, everyone. Welcome to Fort Worth. And that should conclude today's stream. So, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, guys. See you guys Wednesday. I'll post you guys the information for Wednesday's stream. So we're gonna go say hello to Kahar. We're gonna say hello to Can-Do for this week. So take care, guys, and see you all later. And yeah, we're nearly done with part 3 of our journey, guys. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your week. Goodbye, everyone.